Does it show up on your Facebook too? When you do it? When you go live?
I can do it that way, yeah. I can share it
Okay.
to either on pages I manage or to mine.
Okay.
I wonder which Twitter I'm logged into. Okay, we're live. There's that. Share. A Facebook. This keyboard.
What is all the women in my life becoming dragons? I'm okay with that, but you're choosing the chromatic ones, and those are the evil ones. I just saw your Facebook banner, and it's got a giant dragon, and I know a few women who are dragons, and I'm going, but you're all like the colors and not the metallics, and the metallic ones are the good ones, and why are you being evil?
Because you're only going on Kryn, and that's not necessarily what the deal is here.
I'm going with D&D rules.
D&D delineates powers, not alignment with dragons in different worlds. Like I said, like Kryn, Greyhawk, different dragons, sometimes according to lore, have alignments or affiliations with certain gods, but like as far as their weapons and all that kind of stuff, it's those are color decided, not their affiliations. Mine is blue because mine is a guardian of the dreaming, and it's based on one of those dragons, not D&D at all.
Oh, okay. Look, look. If we're going by Tolkien, all dragons are evil because they were created by Malkor.
Exactly.
Um, so I mean, just
So let's not do that. Mine is being taken. Like I said, there's a dragon, a griffin, and a hippogriff guarding the gates of the dreaming. Okay, the Heresy and Hearsay Twitter. I've got the wrong password again.
I don't even remember what the password is. It's just I just can log in and out of it. I don't have it memorized. Um,
I can tweet it to
just
mine, and you can
yeah,
retweet it.
tweet it to yours, and then I'll retweet it on ours.
Okay, there you go.
One
Paste
second.
done.
Log out, and then, yeah, because for whatever reason I don't remember it. Yep, that's wrong. That's wrong. I think it's of course I had to do it on my phone because I don't even remember it. It's on. We are so coordinated. Let's do this. All right, here we go. Show more tweets. Come on, come on. Anyways, yeah. So, all right, retweet. There you go. All right, retweeted from them. Okay, so at this point, are we ready? Are we all good to go?
That seems to be the case,
Okay.
as far as I can tell right now.
Those people who are joining us live are like, boy, they are so with it today. They're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
All
anybody who
right.
spends any time on Twitch knows this is just shit that happens. If you tune in for the pre-show, this is what you get: making the sausage.
Yeah, you get to watch us, tweet our stuff and also talk about the dragons and how they're different in different lores. So, like, it's like I thought this was something about about religion and politics. Anyway, all
Exactly.
right. So, Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Sephiroth II. That's SEPHIROTHII. And you can follow this show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and now we have iTunes. And you can find us there under Heresy and Hearsay under the podcast. Just look for us there. Please share, subscribe, give us a like, give us a rating. 5-star ratings on iTunes really help us out a great deal. And my partner here,
I'm September, also known as 9 of 12. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF 1 2. And you can hear me on the Geek Grills podcast and the Trust Your Cape podcast. Don't forget, you can actually go to heresyandhearsay.com and check out all our episodes at our website if you're not picking them up on a podcatcher already. You can always call us and leave a voicemail at 980-858-2243. Now, if you'd like to support us, we have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/heresy and hearsay. It's a simple $2 a month to help us keep making this humble podcast and stream.
So today, let's talk about the news. First breaking is Trump is trying to scare the nation into another war, this time with Iran. There has been there was some testimony done today where basically the intelligence department was saying, yeah, they're basically following the rules for for the treaty that we signed. And Trump's not believing them. And so, he in fact tweeted earlier today, and I'm going to read this directly from our president's tweets because God knows they can't take the phone away from the man. And he says, the intelligent people seem to be extremely passive and naive when it comes to the dangers of Iran. They are wrong. When I became president, Iran was making trouble all over the Middle East and beyond. You know what? Every time someone, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I'm not finishing the tweet yet, but I just realized I'm trying to sound like Donald Trump. It's just like an inherent thing in this nation. When we read his tweets, we want to say, yeah. Since ending the terrible Iran nuclear deal, they're much different, but the source of potential danger and conflict. They are testing rockets last week and more, and are coming very close to the edge. Their economy is now crashing, which is the only thing holding them back. Be careful of Iran. Perhaps intelligence should go back to school. I'm like, really?
Right. It's like, you fool, you fell victim to one of the classic blunders, the most famous of which is never get involved in a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known, and I'm including this part for a reason, is this: never go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. Now, for one thing, there's going to be somebody who points out and tries to tell me Iran is in Asia, but it is in southern Asia.
It's in Asia Minor.
Middle East is a more recent term than such. Mm-hmm. And the Sicilian thing, like, I started thinking about Italians in the Congress, and I was like, oh, Patrick Leahy. Maybe he will save us. But, I mean, Trump already started a trade war with China.
China.
And now it's just a land war in Asia. Like, you bonehead. We can't win either of those things.
No, it's the late great Robert Williams. It's like, you never want to try to do like a nuclear war with China. They got 1 billion people. Imagine the bombs, or they just have 1 billion people that just jump up and down at once and go boom. Either way, that's not good. China about 10, 15 years ago made a dam that actually changed the wobble when they dammed up this part of a river. It was so big and so massive, it actually changed the wobble of the earth. I mean, like, minuscule, but when we can make that wobble change on our own, that's a little scary.
Right?
So yeah, I'm like all China has to do is just shift its billion people over into our country for a second, and I don't know what that would cause. But yeah, but the thing is, this is a GOP. They've done this before. For all of those who are old enough to remember, or have textbooks that aren't written in Texas, the GOP basically openly lied about there being weapons of mass destruction. And the famous quote is, what if the next WMD, when we find out that WMD is just it could be a mushroom cloud over an American city? It's like, well, first off, if Iran is testing rockets, the rockets are only going to reach one place, and that's Israel. Um, because or other places in the Middle East. The other thing is that it with
Wait, they
Iran,
can't they can't aim them at Israel. They don't believe it exists.
right? That's
Sorry,
true.
that was really inappropriate, but you know.
But the thing is that we as a nation, the Israel nation, when it was originally conceived and everything, wouldn't have been nearly as bad as it is now because it was a small nation, but they've expanded since the original charter. And I think that's where a lot of the trepidation between the Muslims and the Muslim nations and the Israelites is because, or the Israel nation, is because they've done this, and then they're doing that wall thing that Trump wants here, which we'll get to the wall in just a few minutes. Trust me, we'll get there. But the wall thing over in Asia, over there, is basically going through people's houses to divide it up from it's not Gaza, it's the Western Bank, and they're talking about moving the capital back to Jerusalem. And I are we trying to blow up the world? I mean, if we are, just let me know so I can find a place in the mountains and dig a hole so I can be prepared when the apocalypse comes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I mean there are so many things that we're playing against, and Russia. I'm not getting into the whole Russia thing because though it is politics, it's not very religious, but this has a religious tone to it because it ultimately is about the fact that they're Muslim people. It's also racism because they're also brown Muslim people, but it's racism. And it's the fundamentalists. And here's the thing, Trump is not a fundamentalist.
No,
I don't,
he
and that's
caters
another.
really well.
Yes, which is surprising, and that's something we'll get to in another episode because I want to break that down and point out every flaw to that about how Trump is like saying all this stuff, but it is so not Christian, or so not what the Christian ideals teach. And that's something I honestly believe needs to be discussed and needs to be discussed multiple times on our side of the field. That is something that needs to be done, is that it doesn't need, oh, they're just not Christian. It's like, okay, you need to point it out and you need to say what's wrong about it. And you need to say why it's wrong. And I think I don't, and that's the reason I wanted to do this podcast. This is the reason why I was going after this degree I'm going after, is because I believe that we can save the Christian faith and say faith in general. But I'm a Christian, so that's where I'm mostly focused on. But save faith in general for fundamentalists who take the faith and betray it and twist it and turn it into something that it is not. You know, and that's something that this whole war thing, going to war with a country that is not that's fun, that doesn't believe in Jesus as the ultimate savior, but they do believe in Jesus, they do believe in God, they just call him by a different name, and Allah. Sorry, my brain blanked for a second. Allah and all, and they believe in the Jewish tradition, that the Jewish tradition started it, and the Muslim faith is the culmination. It is the pure, what they believe is the purification of these other getting to that point. Um, and if you read the Quran says that you should take care of those who aren't Muslim, that you should protect them, that you should make sure they're okay. the jihad, they talk about jihad. Jihad has nothing to do with religion per se. It does, but it doesn't. It's not against other religions as much as it's against those who do not believe in any, or are, basically barbarians. That is what some interpretations are coming out when it comes to the jihad. But jihads aren't supposed to be called unless it is a drastic measure. You're supposed to try every other thing because they are a nonviolent, very, very law specific about their faith. So, you know
Well,
what?
technically, every religion, most religions are, most organized religions.
Right. Well, I mean, even if you look at Christianity,
Look at
is
the many
real.
many flavors of Christianity that had entire kings enforcing the laws based on the religion in their
Oh
country,
yeah,
right?
right. And yeah, or that there would be fights about it. I mean, that's why the Church of England was created, is because Henry VIII wanted to get a divorce. The Pope said no. It's like, well, then, well, I'll make my own. I'll make my own church.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's so many things people argue about they don't need to. I mean, and then the Jewish faith, I would point out they have their whole kosher thing, which is
Mm-hmm.
law. You were saying how they call God by a different name. I thought that was interesting, because Allah is not a different name. It's just a different language. It just means God in like Syrian. I mean, it's
Well,
and it's still has the Abrahamic roots in the actual history of
right,
the religions. So it's even
right,
the same God, and people don't
right,
understand that, which
right.
drives me nuts when people go crazy about yelling Allah Akbar. It's to the glory of God. It's the same shit
Mm.
people are yelling. You know, to God be the glory that Christians yell. They just don't do the praise Jesus because that wasn't their particular messenger.
Yep, there was Muhammad, and um, but and here, people, because it's modern times, you have to understand that, and the modern aspect of it is that news in general is about the bad, is about the evil, and so they take these people who have twisted their faith and made it into something that it's not, and going after these individuals, and trying to paint the entire broad aspect. It's like trying to paint every southern person as the guys in the woods in Deliverance. We're not like that, I mean, it's that kind of thing. I read something on Twitter the other day. I'm using this as kind of an example. Is that there was some guy who's like, I can't think of a book or a movie that doesn't make that doesn't make Southern people out to either be hillbillies or horror movie individuals. And I was like, wow, that's bad, because there are many books and movies that delved the line. But then I thought about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Deliverance, just two that pop into my head, Mississippi Burning, all of these kind of stuff. And it's outside, like Mississippi Burning, it's outsiders coming in. I know I'm on a tangent. I'm sorry. But my point is that there is this view of Southern people as being hillbilly, backwards, sleeping with their sisters kind of thing. And there's this view of Muslims being violent, blowing people up if they don't believe in Islam. And that's, in both cases, it's not true.
I wouldn't say it's not true.
It's not the majority. It's not the majority.
Right, it's not the majority, but it's easy to stereotype when there's historical evidence of those things happening.
Right.
Um, I mean, you could draw a parallel between Christians and the Crusades, and people
Mm-hmm.
do, with fundamentalists trying to take the rights of anyone of any other religion.
Mm-hmm.
people believing that people fled to the Americas just because of that. The Southern being settled in a different manner, and the terrain did cause a lot of settlements of certain communities. The Appalachians are a good example, where and in Virginia, there was a lot of sister. There's still laws on the books. You can marry like siblings in a couple of states down here. You can
I
marry
know
your
in
first cousin in South Carolina.
North Carolina's second cousin.
Yeah,
I looked the law up, and I'm like, well, that's okay. That's
yeah,
weird.
you know.
but
So,
but the
and the
fact that we had
lynchings took, are more recent here. Some even
Mhm.
present day. I picked up someone in a lift 2 days ago that was flying a Confederate flag. So stereotypes are unfortunate. We can keep
Mhm.
trying to move all of society forward to avoid them, but they're going to stay in pop culture for a long, long time because they have some historical and current basis. Just like as long as bombers are strapping, explosives in
Mhm.
themselves and drying into military compounds, unfortunately, Muslims are going to be blamed for that sort of thing, which is
Right.
really outside of the actual belief system.
Well, and the thing is, and here's where I get really peeved. I will call out a Southern person for being a racist. I will call them out for for that kind of shit. But for the most part, that's me. But for the most part, you hear what the call of like, especially like Trump, but of that ilk, saying, well, the Muslims need to call out those individuals and need to call it out and say it's wrong. It's like, and the their priesthood, and I'm so sorry, I cannot remember the name of their priest, the name that they use for their basically their priesthood and stuff, and I am so sorry. Please forgive me for that. Um, but they do call this stuff out and call it wrong, but it's like when somebody shows to be racism, it's like, oh, that's just a bad apple, versus, and that's what I'm saying. And it's a religion thing, but it's also a color thing. I honestly believe that. I there are so many videos I see on Twitter, because I stay away from Facebook as much as possible, especially with news I just heard recently. But I'll get to that's a whole nother kettle
Yeah,
of
right.
fish. I'll get to that in a minute.
And I'd
I,
helped you
I, I
with the Muslim thing, but I didn't know which word you were looking for because they kind of have a whole lot, just like Christians do. I mean, were you looking
yeah,
for mullah, or were you looking for imam? Were you looking for ayatollah? Like, it's
no,
like,
no,
were
no.
you looking for priest? Were you looking for pope? Were you looking for,
uh,
There's a lot of
Priest.
words.
Yeah,
Yes, you
yeah,
don't have them
priest.
all.
Yeah, priest.
Yeah, I think imam is probably the most commonly heard one that people would have heard more, often.
So yeah, but
Pardon
they
my
they
ducking on the stream. I'm itching my foot.
that's okay. But it's one of those situations where that's what they do call them out. But the thing is that, what are you supposed to do to call to call them out? You can only do so much. So, like, look, we condemn this, you know, and that's one of the things I condemn whenever there's a racist that does something that is racist. I condemn them, but I'm not lumped in as every Southern person is like that. But, well, sort of, I guess I am in some ways, because I am Southern.
And those
Or
are
I'm
great stories, though. We've seen those. We've
hmm
seen groups of Muslims surround, Christians who are being attacked at a protest. It
Oh, yeah.
happens.
Egypt was the big one, when they were having the Muslim Spring, and there were a group of Muslims surrounded. I think they were Eastern Orthodox, but they were surrounded the group of Christians to protect them from radical Muslims that were in the street, or just hoodlums. Because I honestly, there was people wanting to make a change, and then there was people that just wanted to watch the world burn, and there are those people out there. And so a lot of those that were trying to attack these Christians, I don't think were Muslims. I think they were just people just wanting to attack people, and Christians were there, and Muslims were doing exactly what they were taught. which was to protect them. And here's the thing, the reverse should be true in this country, that Christians should surround the Muslims and protect them from any harm that may be going on in the streets. Christians should do that with Jewish people. Christians should do that with any religion, because we don't have a right to judge what they believe. That's up to God to make that decision if they believe or not.
Well,
If they're well,
people should just treat people that way.
yes, I agree. And for a while I used to believe that atheists were going to save us from the world, and then Bill Maher keeps opening his mouth, and then I'm like, well, I'm done. I have a dislike for Bill Maher, especially this last week. He ranted about not Stan Lee, but he ranted about people who like comic books and how we're all just children. And
Hey,
I'm
you know
like,
who else likes comic books? I found in my research today
who's that?
Patrick Leahy. Batman in particular.
Okay, look, well, he doesn't
Sorry.
have good taste. He doesn't have good taste in superheroes, but whatever. I'm so burned out on Batman. I'm just damn.
Can't say he's not a good hero. My gosh. What a
He
lasting story.
Well, don't get me wrong, he is a very good hero, but on the same thing, it gets to the point where it's just so much Batman is better than everybody else here stories that I've seen over and over again, and it's like, anyways, that's a whole nother topic. If you want to bring me on one of your other shows, when we can discuss my my growing disdain of the word Batman and just how he is the end all and be all of superheroes. But we need to move on to the next bit of news. As you may know, Trump decided to open the government back only because everybody was starving and not showing up to work. And the FCC was saying, I'm sorry, the Federal Aviation Commission was saying, hey, if you don't open up the government, you're not going to have flights.
It's not why he did any of that. He did any of that because the polls were showing people were blaming it on him.
But I thought he said he would be happy to have it on him.
Mm-hmm.
Until he realized that he made lose.
Until it was, oh, this is actually a bad thing, and then some of his sheep started to revolt.
Yeah. So, but the government's open now, but if they don't work out an agreement by the middle of February, it can close again. And basically, Trump has come out and said he wants a wall or a physical barrier. So I'm wondering if a baby gate would work. I mean, I'm sure there's a baby gate around the button to keep Trump away from it.
Yeah, they would have already put one in the Oval Office.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The last design I saw for the wall was a bunch of like 10-foot high steel poles, basically, that had points at the top that you could just throw a ladder over, or whatever. And the point and how they were designed, it could be very easily broken, cut, or because they showed it. It was like with just some hand tools, they cut an opening about 3 feet wide with hand tools when they basically connected it. And by law, by national law that we have signed treaties for, we are not allowed to electrify that fence.
There's just plenty of data and history about barriers not working in general, and that's not where the immigrants are even coming from. And I mean, we don't need to go into immigration again right now. We've been
no, we don't. But I just wanted to bring up that I don't want the Democrats to cave on this. It's not about the immigration at this point. It's about if he wins this, then he will hold the government hostage whenever he wants something.
Which is what people say every time it happens. So, but he's a little more stubborn and stupid than any of the other presidents who have done it, in my opinion.
So what is your opinion? Do you think that they should just let it happen so that we could just move on with government, or
let him go ahead and try and declare a state of emergency? I think if his people keep working on him, because they don't want the government to shut down either, and the public is actually against him on this, and he's still pretending to be a populist, but he lost a lot of popularity on this, and people actually blame the hardships on him. Stand your ground, stand your ground, but then, oh, shit, my neighbors are hungry. And oh, I can't fly conveniently, and whatever. So the real life, what your government does for you, which people take for granted way too often, especially people on the right wing. They want to abolish the government and reduce the size of the government, and then suddenly it was enough. It took, and even with only a partial shutdown, everyday people were being affected. If he'd have gone past, much past now, it would have blown up even further, and I'd have been okay with that. But I survive, and I'm not willing to put other people's welfare at risk. But when people start not getting their tax returns, stuff like that, he can't just shut it down again. There are people who, in the middle of February, are still not going to have their returns, and he's going to shut down the IRS. That's going to be a huge segment of normal Joes that will turn on him. So I think what he'll try to do is declare that state of emergency and then let the courts have it, because that's not going to fly. He's not going to be able to prove that it's a state of emergency. The humanitarian crisis at the border, I couldn't even believe he said those words out loud. I mean, yeah, there is. It's you putting children in cages. He would have to prove that there's all these criminals. If you watch Fox News, they will tell you it's proven that it's just a bunch of criminals trying to get across the border, and that's just not true. And the judicial branch can still hold if he tries this state of emergency shit. So yeah, Democrats should keep pushing back, not allowing this wall funding, and see what he does next. But shutting down the government, he'd be hanging himself. Give him his rope.
Well, here's the thing: if he was going to, my whole thing is, if he was going to declare the state of emergency, he would have done it during that primetime thing.
No, he likes the bluff and bluster. He was still trying to just get his way, and he was threatening to, right? That was his threat during that address. And we'll see what happens. Did you hear today? I haven't heard. Nancy Pelosi extended the actual invitation to give the State of the Union in front of Congress now that he has reopened the government.
Yeah, it was I think it's the 5th.
But did he accept or not yet? I have to say I'm amused by, like, people turning his childish tactics back on him. That, like, see, there are consequences to your actions, and you reopen the government, and now you'll be rewarded. Like, it's really what we have to do.
I think it's the 5th, and if he, you know what, that's
somebody should have put a little the bowl of candy by his chair.
You know what? That's the 5th. That's on a Tuesday. I know that's a normal Geek Grill night, but we may want to talk about possibly doing a live broadcast of that. That would be entertaining.
It might be interesting. I wonder if Jen is set up then. We might be able to simultaneously stream
all 4 of us
to both channel, all 3 of us on both channels. Linda will be at Disney World.
Okay, yeah, that would actually be entertaining. I think we'll have to get together and discuss that. But sorry, I know we're talking business while we're doing podcasts.
It's not that bad. People can call or write us or email and say, "Hey, that's a terrible idea," or "I would love to see that shit." Who knows?
And I'll we'll pull up MSNBC and we'll see or one of them and watch it live and just lose our minds over it live, and you get our reactions live. That may be fun.
Maybe
we'll have to talk about that. So next, now this is an email I got because I do get quite a number of emails, and one of them I get is from NC Equality, and from what I read on the email is basically the North Carolina DMV has made it a streamlined process to change your gender markers on your driver's license and state identification. And basically it's going to be across the board uniform. And from what it looks like, it is not requiring, it does not require It does not require a form stating that there is a formal that there is a change of actual sexuality or a change of sex through operation.
Gender.
Yeah, well, their gender is identity, but what from my reading of this email, it was like you had to change your sex to change your, which is the physical part, to change your gender on your identification. Is that
So they're still doing the words wrong, but whatever.
well, maybe I'm doing the words wrong.
No,
My
no, I'm
point.
looking at their document.
Okay, so yeah, look, I'm just happy that that's not a requirement anymore. That they could just say, "I've got, I'm changing." They have to legally change the name. That's one thing, but that's not a hard process in the state of North Carolina. It's from my understanding, but then you can change your gender identity on your identification, which is beneficial. Because I just read somewhere in New York where they basically it was a transgender woman, and she gave both her her birth name and race. I'm not race, but birth name and birth gender, and then her new name and new gender to the police for whatever reason that she was pulled over, and they arrested her for um, impersonation, and now New York is being sued because of that.
Hmm.
So, we're transgender rights have a long way to go. It's going to be honest, gay marriage was such a fight that I honestly didn't think was going to win, because interracial marriage took forever to win. I just, I figured it was going to be towards the end of my generation before I saw that happen. And so to have it happen as quick as it did, I think the world's moving faster, and I think we're moving in a more progressive way.
Yeah, I mean, we can hate the 24 news cycle all we want, but for that sort of thing, I think it's working well because public opinion swaying quickly frightens authority, and they
Hmm.
have to make change.
Hmm.
And we can communicate with each other and organize more effectively.
Right. No, and see, there are pluses to that. There are pluses. I want to touch on this because I don't have it on our notes, but there is one thing that I want to touch on, and this is about Facebook. This is something that I read about, but basically they're being sued, and some documentation has come out about how Facebook knew that they were that kid, like parents would give their kids a one-time authorization for buying something on Facebook, one of their games and stuff like that, and then the kids would continue to put money, use the same credit card, because Facebook never deletes that information. And so these kids would then do it, and then try to, either they would try or the parents would try to get the refunds back. And basically they called it friendly fraud, because they knew it was going on. They knew that it wasn't the adult doing it, but they wouldn't put in steps to block it, because then they wouldn't get the generation that they wanted, the money generation that they wanted. So,
Yeah, the whales and the friendly fraud situation. There's one inaccuracy, and you're describing it where it's not like you couldn't try to get a refund and get a refund. They, of course, were issuing refunds in those cases. It was more a fact of all the ones that were never ever caught, and Facebook knew that it was going on, and there were memos showing in the meetings that they knew it was
mhm,
going on, and they didn't take their own initiative to contact the people where it was suspected that was going on and issue refunds, which they should have made that good faith effort, because now it just looks like all we could see is they were going, yeah, this is going on, but it's not that big a deal. We'll just let it keep going, because the refunds they were issuing on request were considerably smaller than the profit they were still making. Take advantage of the policy.
well, actually, I just saw a report about it where there's memos coming out where they were like, Well, don't issue if you're not sure of the individual who's asking for the refund. Don't issue the refund.
Well, you never do
Eh,
if you're not sure, but it's easy to prove. I've had to get these refunds. Guess what? I did. So I don't know what you read, but I had to do it. I have
yeah,
teenagers.
no, no, but you know, the reason I bring up the Facebook thing is like first off, never put your credit card on Facebook because you know I learned that years ago. Never put your credit card on Facebook. But more importantly, it's just you know people look at you know because Gillette came out with an ad not too long ago about toxic masculinity, and of course the toxic men that it was talking about lost their ever loving minds. There's a picture that went viral of this guy throwing his Gillette razor into the toilet, and I'm like, well, that's going to cost you a small fortune to get out once. You know,
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah. But you know, besides like yeah, that's one way to wreck up your plumbing. But my point is that you know just because a company does something nice, like you know, or it may seem to be on your side, you know, like Nike when they came out with the Kaepernick ad. I enjoyed the Kaepernick ad. I enjoyed the Gillette ad. I applaud them for that, but they are making a business decision.
sure.
You
Yeah.
know, because they are looking at the trends, they're looking at the world around them, and they're saying this is the right side of history to be on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like that famous Coke song, "I want to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony." That was Coke being on that right side of trying harmony, trying human connection. You know, that was Coke trying to do that. So
Sure. Well, you saw my take probably on the Gillette ad. I love that. Um, what it does prove is that market research shows that incels aren't a significant contributor to the economy.
no. Oh, and here's the thing. Speaking of incels, because you brought that up, and I just remember the story. There was an incel that was an incel, and I'm using quotations for a second to realize incels are, for those that don't know, are people who are involuntary celibates, meaning they can't get laid because women won't look at them because they don't look like a Chad, which is a term for a genetically normal looking guy. Okay. So I roll my eyes at that first off because I'm not genetically normal looking either, but I know what a woman looks like naked. So, and it's not like on porn. So I'm just, you know, letting that out there now. I know, you know, it's not that, it's you and how you treat women. But there was an incel threatening, and he got, you know, they found him. He was on a, you know, they got him, arrested him, all this for basically doing threats that he was going to try to kill as many women as physically could. Come to find out, he wasn't even an incel. That he had a girlfriend, and that his girl basically he's and they had been romantic. They had been intimate with each other, but he had stalked her and all of this stuff to the point where it caused her to almost have to be committed. That was how bad he treated her and how bad he treated that relationship. So it wasn't that he couldn't. It's just that he treated women so poorly that women wouldn't date him. And that is my first off, that's my theory on incels in general, because of how they talk about women. They don't talk about women like they're human beings, or they talk to them like they're owed this, that women should just lay down in front of them and say, okay, take me now.
I don't even want to give them any time. I think a whole lot fewer than it's blown up to be too. I think the whole thing is ridiculous.
No, but it is. But again, we're talking about minorities, like with Muslims or with Southern racism or stuff like that. They can be the loudest and they can be the scariest. So, you know, we need to be aware of them, but we don't need to give them. It's kind of like, you know, when mass murderers or mass murderers, especially, you know, like the school shootings and stuff like that, we don't need to know the name of the killer. What we need to do is remember the name of the victims. So we don't need to, make them to where the next person that goes out and does this suddenly gets glorified, or the next person or the next person. That doesn't need to happen. What we need to do is understand them so that we can combat it on an individual basis, but don't make it, don't glorify what they are. You see that?
Sure.
I, I'm,
Still not
there's a
sure why you're
lot.
talking about it, but okay.
I'm sorry. I'll shut up. What do we got next? I'm sorry. It's just this one's yours because you brought this one up.
Yeah, this was brought to me this morning. One of my sons came to me. He just said, "Oh no," he texted me, "Mom, did you see the president's tweet?" I wasn't even sure it was real, and I was just laughing so hard. So this tweet, 28, so 2 days ago, in the beautiful Midwest, wind chill temperatures are reaching minus 60 degrees, the coldest ever recorded. In coming days, expected to get even colder. People can't last outside even for minutes. What the hell is going on with global warming? Please come back fast. We need you. Wow. No. And I was just, at first, I was like, it was so, because I read it as, an intelligent individual, and all the run on sentence commas, I was like, what is even, did he have a stroke? Like, these things don't even seem related. And I was like, oh, it's because, that's right, those people don't understand the difference between climate and weather.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot. This made perfect sense to those people. They were like, 193,236 retweets.
Yeah, I just
Almost
pulled it up.
200,000 stupid people who are still saying, "What do you mean global warming? It's cold out right now." Please stop.
I think I told you the someone, and this is not mine, so I can't take claim to it. And I don't remember who it was that described global warming or climate change like this. Climate change is like basically you open your freezer and you leave it open. The rest of the room, which is the rest of the world, gets cooler, but the freezer itself warms up. That is kind of it's kind of the simplest way to understand it. So yeah, we're going to get colder temperatures because we've basically opened the refrigerator door. There was this barrier, this vortex. They talk about an Arctic vortex that basically stayed in the Arctic and kept the Arctic frozen. But because we've broken that barrier down, it is filtering into this nation and filtering, and South Pole's the same way it's filtering up. Well, you know what I mean.
It
It's
changes the whole
filled.
pattern, yeah.
It changes the pattern of weathering, and I mean it's so bad that in Chicago they're having to set fire to the train tracks so that the trains can run on time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but fire in Chicago. There's something in the back of my head reminding me how that doesn't play out well in history. I saw the pictures of it,
Oh,
and
come on. Controlled planned fires are a different thing. Our firefighters and emergency responders use them all the time.
I know.
But
I'm just
yes,
like,
it's funny.
but I saw pictures of it, and it's just like huge swaths of track are just on fire. These guys, they spray this special stuff that burns and basically melts down the ice and stuff. But it's right now. There was someone posted that I follow on Facebook that lives in or Twitter. I keep saying Facebook because that was the common thing on Twitter, that lives in Chicago, and she posted this. I want to say 11 o'clock this morning, their time. It was minus 20 degrees, and that's not including wind chill.
Mm-hmm.
That's a natural emergency. You know what we need a wall for? We need a wall to Canada to keep that cold air in Canada. That's what we need a wall for. We don't need a wall down in this. We need Mexico to keep sending warm air up. But and you're from the Buffalo area. This should be like old hat for you.
Yeah.
Minus 20 should be like a normal day for you.
Oh, and it's weird how warm it is. I mean, they're having storms now. but
Mm.
this is only their second or third storm, and it's freaking. There's usually a whole lot more. Usually it started when I was a kid. It was snowing by Halloween, and it's definitely been a warming trend. And then horrible heinous storms when it comes. The severity is different, and yeah, I mean, I've seen climate change in my lifetime.
I mean, I have too.
And I know people who grow, who farm. Like my dad, who even he used to be one of those guys. Like, oh, it's really cold. What about global warming? Stupid. And boy, he feels differently now, trying to keep his gardens growing. He sees it.
I mean, between between like the late 80s, 90s, living in the South, you could pretty much, if you were a weatherman in the South from like June to like mid September, you could basically you could make a 5 day forecast, change your suit a couple of times, and then go on vacation, except if a hurricane shows up. But for the most part, for 3 or 4 months, it's lows in the mid 60s, highs in the mid 90s, chance of rain in the afternoon, maybe severe at times. That was, I mean, it was just like clockwork.
Yeah, yeah. I was
And
living in the early 90s in Florida, and I was working at Disney World. So I was working outdoors every day. And I mean, there were storms that came in between like 2:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon every day for months. Like it was a very predictable pattern,
mhm.
completely different now.
It is. It's completely different now, and it's completely different. I mean, now, I mean, summer sometime this past summer, I know two or three summers ago, we had like a week of like 100 plus before you counted in humidity, and we may get 1 day a year that may bump close to 100. And again, that's weather, and I understand that's weather, but the thing is, but there was that pattern where this year and the previous year and the previous year before that, there were more of those days where it was that hot versus it be like maybe once a year every couple of years, where you get 1 day where it would just spike and then it would come back down. But now it's a pattern, and that's what I'm.
Yeah. It's just interesting to see people finally saying, oh my God, Al Gore was right.
Yeah, Al Gore was right all along. And Al Gore's going, thanks. Now you notice as we're almost to the point where we can't fix it. Thanks, guys.
Hey, on your story, a friend of mine just posted on Facebook and she got her marker changed. Yay.
Yay, that's
Yay.
great.
Congratulations, Faith.
So see, we're doing well.
See?
And,
Progress happens.
even where we're on the show right now is happening. You brought this up, and I do want to talk about it, where Trump wants to basically have Bible studies in public schools.
Yes. And this has been an initiative in several states. They've been trying to include this, get it into their educational laws so that these can be included. I'm not real keen on this, as it's being implemented and in the policies I have seen, where, I mean, as a part of a social studies class, maybe, right? I can see doing religious studies and covering several different religions. I think that is a fantastic idea. This isn't that. This is Bible study. This is directly a violation of church and state. We're talking about publicly funded schools. This happened last school year or beginning of the school year. Recently, here in Iredell County, a friend of mine contacted me with like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what I just got. And she got her course choice sheet for her son going into high school. And the only choices he had for the semester entering was Bible study 1, like Old Testament, and Bible study 2, New Testament. Those were his only choices for social studies credit. And I was like, no, I'm
No.
glad you contacted me. Not legal. And I called the school. They're like, we don't know what you're talking about. Of course there are other choices. I'm like, I have a copy of the document. I'll get back to you. And I called the superintendent of public instruction and I submitted, stuff. And then, oh no, we're sorry. No, no, here's another corrected sheet. And there were other choices provided. But holy shit, the local school board was just trying to, like, I went up the line. I called the school, I called the county board before I went to state superintendent.
Hmm.
And they were just trying to shove this down the throats of our local public school as you are going to study the Bible. And this is someone whose father is a Turkish Muslim.
And here's the thing, I don't mind studying those, like you said, religious text in a back, not as a religious text but as a historical documentation, not that it, historically accurate, but what that
And relate
document.
it to whatever history you're learning, right?
Right,
Cool.
right. I have no problems with that in public schools. And saying, well, this is what this document says, this is what this document says, this, and stuff like that. And also looking at the, like, say one semester you take the Old Testament and discuss what the impact on the world around it was. Not so much, what it was or what it was representing, but what the impact on the world around when this text came out was. The same with the New Testament, the same with the Quran, what that change did to the world around it and how it affected the world. That is history. That is something that should be discussed. How did Buddhism change India, or how did it change China, or things like that.
Or
So
how
that is
religious texts were changed with the political goings on at the time, like we've discussed on this show.
right,
See,
correct.
they should just let us write these syllables.
I mean, so that, and to me, that's extremely interesting, and I would take that course, you know, um, because I've always been interested in that part of the outsider looking in, going, "Hey, well, this is how this changed this, and this is why this part of the document was changed versus this." And it's like the Catholic Church uses um, the Egyptian Jewish text, which is more expanded than the Hebrew text, which is what the Protestant church uses. And I've always been fascinated to try to find out why there's that big discrepancy. What caused that to happen?
See, and
I know.
anthropologically and sociologically, those are very interesting things worth educating people about. But having, like, publicly funding just outright Bible study,
Yeah.
mm, I mean,
It's
and the president taking the stand, which is actually unconstitutional to, well, in my opinion, people would argue can't stop people from practicing religion. And I'm sure people would make that side of the argument, but that wouldn't get past precedents to take the stand that, like, oh yeah, I think this is great.
basically we're not supposed to have a national religion. And by him saying, "Oh, Bible studies are definitely something that should happen," that's basically one step towards that line of having a national religion. And that's not what that's what the First Amendment part of the First Amendment is about, is that we're not supposed to have a state sponsored religion
Well,
because that. Mhm.
with the wording of it, this is going to end up in the courts. The laws these states are trying to pass are sloppy. It's unfortunate the president's getting behind them, but definitely people like me and my friends would take this to the courts. It'll end up in the Supreme Court. They'll have to hold it against the constitutional First Amendment, which says that the government shall make no laws restricting practice of religion. Like, it's this weird negative phrasing
Right.
that in the history of cases like this, people will try to use and say that no, no, it's unconstitutional to block this because they're blocking our practice of religion. There's not enough specifics in the Constitution, but only there will be in rulings of precedent
Mm-hmm.
that stand up and say you can't support one over another, but it's not the way the Constitution is worded, and this is why it's important who we have on the Supreme Court, and it is leaning to the right very significantly right now with Trump appointees, and him saying stuff like this and how he backs it could put prior rulings like that one in jeopardy, and
Mm-hmm.
then we end up with a state religion. It's
Yep.
just another of his dictatorial fucking tendencies that people don't realize how dangerous they are.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and that goes back to the whole. It goes back to the whole Kavanaugh thing and why it was such a fight to keep to try to keep him off, other than him being a jackass. I do want to talk. I do want to talk about something I didn't put in, and I just remembered it for a couple of reasons. But this blew up really big over the weekend, and it was either this weekend or last week. I think it was this weekend where there was the March for Life in Washington, but there were also other things going on. And during the March for Life, there's video of a group of high school kids from a Catholic high school surrounding Native Americans, mocking them, facing off with them in
Mm-hmm.
a way that was trying to start confrontation. But the Native Americans did what they did, and I've watched other videos than the one that it became viral of the kid standing there with that smug look, wearing the MAGA hat, which I forget who. Someone said a MAGA hat is basically like a white hood now. Oh, it was Elisa Milano who said that. That the MAGA hat has become the white hoods of today. But so it's this kid standing in a MAGA hat with this smirk on his face, with what with this whole white male privilege, because they were there as a high school to march against women's rights to choose. So basically the school, which I understand is a private school, that's fine, but it's still a school teaching these boys that they have a right to tell women how to control their bodies. But
Well,
that's the Catholic Church.
it
Yeah,
was
no.
yeah, it was a Catholic school. They were expressing their right to free speech and religion. They were protesting, and they were perfectly within their rights. I watched a lot of different videos from that. I was very tempted to react, and I think that kid, despite what he has said since, that was obvious. That was definitely a confrontational, smug-looking stance. I can see
Yeah.
where it being misinterpreted. And the boys, they were making a tomahawk motion.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna condemn them on that. I watched the video a lot of times. I think it seemed mocking. It did not look like a tomahawk motion. I'm very familiar with this. My mom used to live in Cleveland, all against the Chief Wahoo, believe me. But it seemed more like they were dancing and singing along. They weren't going woo 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 woo, right? They were trying to go along. Seeing some videos from the surrounding area, there was another group there previously who was a group of African American Muslims who believe they're the chosen people, and they go around attacking people in other cities and confronting, and they were screaming at the MAGA hat kids,
Hmm.
at horrible threats like they do. This group is one of those fringe group. This is like the Westboro version of those people. And the natives were on their way to Lincoln Memorial to wrap up their own march, which was permitted.
Hmm.
I think the MAGA kids were supposed to be somewhere else. They just happened to be meeting their buses at the Lincoln Memorial.
Right.
So when the natives came up, they saw this confrontation happening, and that leader, as he is wont to do, he walked between the groups and he started
Right.
singing his song, and he was trying to diffuse the situation.
Right.
So it ended up looking really, really bad from that point of view of that kid just standing there in his face smirking. But the kid did not approach them. There are right wing like sites that only show the other side, and they make it look like the natives were walking up to the kids, and then that wasn't it either. And then the other people tried to make it look like the natives were joining these other people in abusing the kids, and the kids were just standing their ground, and that wasn't it either. I guess I watched a lot of different views. I read
Hmm.
and heard from a lot of different people on it, and it seemed to really, unfortunately, go way out of proportion. The kid's reaction was stupid. Yes, he should have just walked the fuck away when given the opening. When the natives walked in between the two groups,
Right.
but they're kids. So they're not going to walk away. And
I,
I'm not willing to make the call and say they were just mocking the natives, especially knowing that they were already being attacked by those other people and having seen the horrible things that were said to those kids. And the kids were there. They knew that was two different groups.
I,
It's not as cut
I'm
and
not.
dry as it seems to be.
No, it's not. It's not. No, some of the video I saw and some of the angles I saw, there was some. How I saw it, there were some, not all, but there were some that were mocking. There were some that were getting into it, the
Oh,
best
yeah.
way they could, So it was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So yeah,
I mean, there was a kid that yelled, "You can't move him," which was just like, what are you? Have you even seen the rest of what happened? Like, and you were there. I don't know what that
yeah,
kid was trying to start.
yeah, and then I saw a video of some other kids. I don't know if it was the Covington, but there was another set of kids that were sitting around waiting or whatever. And there was also a women's march going on that same time, if I remember correctly. This was DC must just have marches all year round. But so can't you like spread these out so that these groups don't intermingle? But there were some women walking down the street and these boys basically in MAGA hats and all that catcalled the young ladies and is like build the wall, MAGA rules, as these young ladies were walking by. So you
Yeah.
know
Well,
they're
people kept talking about this. They were saying build the wall and yelling
mhm.
it at the natives. I could not find any footage of that. I watched so many different videos and I never was able to pick that out.
I,
Videos that people linked insisting that they heard the kids saying it in it. I'm like,
yeah, and here's the thing: when if you go into the mindset listening for that, you'll hear it. That was that whole test about a couple of years ago. There was this big thing: does it sound like this or that? When you move the bar and whatever. But if you listen, if your brain is like trying to hear the words, you'll hear the words that you are expecting to hear if it's close enough. It's like, listening to the original version of a song that Weird Al has parodied. I may know the Weird Al song much better, So when I hear the words, it's the Weird Al words coming into my head. So I'm using that as an example to lighten it a little bit, but on the same thing, yeah, the videos I did here, I couldn't hear what the kids were saying. For all I know, they were trying to sing along with the Native Americans, which is not the best thing to do, because they are actually speaking words in their language, and you're just making noise. Mm, you
yeah,
know, uh,
yeah, it
so
was wildly inappropriate and immature.
y- yeah, but they're teenagers. But on the same thing, I don't think our president should be meeting them either. Without me at least meeting with the Native Americans as well. I think it should be, if you're going to meet one group, you should meet the other. The third group,
Hmm.
yes, I
That
saw those
third
videos.
group, I mean, they were
They're
the
called
things they said were worse than any of this other shit that went on.
I think they're known as the Black Israelites. I think is
I
the
think
name of the
so,
group.
but they
Yeah,
were
and
calling people
oh yeah,
the MAGA kids child molesting faggots, and the natives telling them, you know, telling the white kids go back to Europe. This isn't your land. Yeah, the
yeah,
Hebrew Israelites is what they're called
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
I mean, and they were just they. You had to see stuff from the outside point of view, and then there's this like, oh, the MAGA kids surrounded the natives, and I saw 360 footage because people could be, no, they didn't, no, they didn't. I was like, I saw a 360 shot where that happened, but then I saw all these shots that were from the outside, and it's like, I think there was actually a little bit of working together there where they were keeping out that smaller group of
Yeah. So what it
Really
looked like,
confrontational people.
the heroes of this, because there were some faults on the kids' side, but they're kids, and some of that you got to let go. There's some of it that,
A little
yeah,
bit.
they're
I hope they
a
learn
little.
from it.
I hope so. I do, because I was taking an ethics class in college, and there was a young lady in my class that definitely didn't understand her white privilege, and these kids, I don't think, understand their white privilege. But the heroes of that group, what the heroes of that confrontation was the Native Americans, because they, it looked like from the there's like a 2 hour video floating around somewhere, and I saw part of it, and I don't remember, I don't have the link anymore, but there was a 2 hour video of basically of these, it's starting with the two groups and the Native Americans walking in to basically keep this from blowing up out of proportion,
Yeah.
because it would have went bad fast. My question is, where were the teachers? Where were the
Yeah,
chaperones?
where the hell were the chaperones?
I mean,
My God.
if you were a chaperone, if one of your sons was on a trip like this, and these guys start yelling these words at your son, as you're a chaperone, where were the chaperones to step up and say, hey, wait a minute, these are kids, what are you doing? Or trying to usher the kids away so there isn't a confrontation, one of the two.
And I feel bad for that main kid. I really do. Even though
There
he
was
says I know it looks like he's smirking, but I have teenagers. I have a 23-year-old. I can see that look on Connor's face, and that kid wasn't hooting, and hollering.
Yeah.
He was standing, staring, and it was such an absurd situation. I might even have that look on my face, trying to just stand quietly, toe to toe. Like, it was almost, I can, in my heart, interpret that as, of all those kids dancing around being dorks,
Mm,
he was standing there being the focus, standing face to face with another leader, while that other ugliness was going on. That they had just
mm.
been being attacked. This guy walked up, and those two stood there toe to toe. And yeah, okay, it looked like he was smirking, but I will not claim to know his heart.
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything nearly as disrespectful as many of his fellow students did, in just standing silently while that was going on, something so foreign to him, right there in his face. And even if he was just silently disagreeing, it could have, there are many worse choices that he could have
I
made, and he is the face of
Yeah.
such, like, derision
And
right now.
and I've admitted this in the past, this has been a struggle in my faith, is not to jump to conclusions or to judge, because I was on that boat. I wanted to know who he was. He needed to be shamed. And now that I've had some time to step back and think about it, there were people that had found out who they were, stuff like that, and but they didn't release it. These were like reporters, not individual people, but these were reporters. Didn't release it for a couple of reasons. First off, he's underage, and if he's underage at that point, it's like, okay, well, I need to cut him some slack on that point. And second off, we don't know everything that was going on. We don't know the whole story. And looking over the videos since then and everything, it's like, yeah, okay, but he's still a kid. He didn't, unlike some. Oh, there is that one story that I just remembered, that one. I may touch on that one. There were but there was basically, he was not, he didn't do anything wrong per se. Yeah, as far as, he didn't do anything criminally wrong, he didn't do anything, he might have had poor choice in judgment, but it was nothing that harmed anybody or anything like that. So yeah, kids have mistakes, kids are allowed to make mistakes. And yes, he should be called out on it, just like if I made a racist mistake or a misogynistic mistake, I need to be called out on it so I can learn from it. But he doesn't need to be called out to where it shames his entire life, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And part of this is his face is still there, but
And the
at
kid,
least
like, it's been interesting to watch. And this is like, I love having a lot of media, but I at least look at different sides to see the different coverage. I mean, there's so, like, people just, that native man just ran up to him and completely missed the other part. And then the kids, like you said, not recognizing their privilege, being rich white kids, somebody hires a PR firm to try and get some kind of grip on this rather than what? Leave a teenager to try and construct some kind of oh my god save my life social media, like he's going to be interviewed, he's going to be, yes, I'd be coaching the hell out of my kid if they made some terrible mistake like that on how to apologize, how to handle it, how to tell your side
yeah.
of the story, and but then the left wing, media, our sources were just, oh, they hired a PR firm, they're just full of shit. They're not full of shit just because they could hire somebody to write stuff for them. People hire me to write stuff for them just because I'm good with the language. It doesn't make them a bad person.
No, no, and I understand that, and especially because the name of the school came out so quick, and basically they had to shut down their
Oh,
phone line.
they
You
closed
know,
school, I think, for a
yeah,
little bit too. Yeah, and they're
yeah,
talking about, well, we'll
and
investigate. We might have to expel them. That'd be a
but
shame.
but yeah, but the other thing is that, and I can understand as a school how terrifying that is, because you suddenly get all this heat on you, and there are crazy people on the left too. I'm
And they're
sorry, I'm
privately
just yeah,
funded.
yeah. So and you know
Yeah.
that can be terrifying, and I can understand that, and you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
So
Schools are targets these days.
they are.
Ugh.
Um, there is one. Um, I'm not going to touch on it. I will talk about it later, but there is a case that I remembered that just caused me to lose my ever living
Okay.
shit, and
Yeah.
and I think I posted it on Facebook a while back, and it was another one of those white guy gets away with something,
Mm.
and you probably know where that goes, and I'm just not right now. I don't think it's a good place for that here. I think we should talk about that more in justice in general. But
Yeah, and that's worth talking about. I have lots of points on that myself.
so let's end on a stupid note or a silly note in some respects, because this also blew up the internet, and not in a good way. Um, so during the shutdown, our nation decided that we were still going to have football, including college football. And the Clemson Tigers, which is near us, which is in our area, you know, it's in Clemson, South Carolina, which is about 2 hours away from my area, won the national championship. Because of the shutdown, most of the staff at the White House that was not necessary is not there. So Trump decided he was still going to have the national team come up. And you've seen the pictures, and if you haven't, then you don't watch social media to begin with. But there were pictures of basically where they went to McDonald's, Wendy's. I think it was mostly McDonald's from what I saw. I didn't see any others but McDonald's, because there were Big Macs, filet of fish, chicken nuggets. There were, and these, and it's stacked up. And there were story after story about how these kids have specialized trainers to teach them how to eat properly to get the best out of
To
their
be fair,
bodies.
there are piles of salads in there.
There is piles of salads, but the pictures, and it's just, here's my thing. I got 2 points. First off, is just they're putting all these Big Macs and stuff on these silver trays,
Yeah. They
and
moved
they're
the fries. Did you see the fries? They put them in little like White House logoed cups.
yeah, and then they're like lighting the candelabras. There are people running around lighting the candelabras like this is some fancy dinner. And I posted this on I posted this on Facebook, on Twitter. Keep saying Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Daniel's on Twitter. Barney is on Twitter, where it was like, for someone who and Trump made this big elaborate deal that he's paying for it out of his own pocket. It's a tax write-off, first off, because it's a business expense, and tell me that's not the case. Second off, second off,
No.
second
You
off,
better not
if
try that. That's not legal. So.
he's the president.
Yeah, it's not his business. That's the government. That's very separate.
Well, if he used his presidential pay, then you see how that works.
Eh,
Anyways, but if he is a
you
billionaire,
can't
as he,
gift with that. It's another
I know,
tax law.
I
Just
know.
saying.
But if he is a billionaire, could he not hired somebody to cater? Could he not hired some famous chef that
Oh
would be
yeah.
willing to be willing to stand in the same room with him? There are right wing chefs out there. I know there are. But so there are chefs out there that would be willing to do this, that
Oh,
are
happily. It was a
happily do
stunt.
this, and then have like this really fancy dinner for these kids, like, because they're kids still. They are still kids too, and they won. But the other interesting thing is, out of 57 African American students who were in the game, only 15 went to this thing because of his politics. Most of the white kids did go. I'm not getting into that, but and you posted about how at the same time, and the Golden State Warriors basically stated they weren't going to, they had won the NBA championship. They were not going to go and visit President Trump, but they went and visited President Obama instead.
Yep.
And I want to bring this up because I think I was about 2 years into President Obama's presidency. There was a billboard that was posted with a giant picture of George W. Bush's head, and it's like, "Do you miss me yet?" And I'm like, "No, sir." But now, you know what? My hero when it comes to this kind of stuff, Keith Olbermann, said I would take 10 Bush presidencies over Trump's presidency, because it's only been 2 years. We are in January of the start of the third year.
I
Tell
don't.
me,
Very
tell
separate
me.
issues with both of them.
I do, but
I
here's the
mean,
thing.
that's easy to
Do you,
say and that's funny to say. I don't think W is a bad guy. I think he wasn't particularly smart. I don't think he was as dumb as our Mango Mussolini. Um,
Mango
but
Mussolini?
he our Orange Overlord has also not started any actual like blowing people up wars. And during
That's
W's
true.
reign, I was in Washington marching against the war in Iraq with my mother. So, and he started wars that are still going on. The whole, yeah, there's a lot of reasons just like him, but as a person, oh hell yes, I'm not. I mean, I was embarrassed when W was present, but he wasn't a pussy grabber and bragging about it and serving people Big Macs. And he, during the government shutdown, was delivering pizzas to Secret
Hmm.
Service agents.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Where
it's
Trump was, throwing paper towels at Puerto Ricans in a hurricane. And yeah, just a
and don't and here's
horrifyingly
and you can take the
amoral moron.
hurricane. And you can take the hurricane, and you can look at the hurricane in two different ways. You got Hurricane Katrina, which was a disaster for President Bush, which basically caused him to lose the
Hell of a
midterms.
job, Brownie.
Yeah, yeah. But you take a look at his response versus Trump's response to Puerto Rico, and it's like
Oh, look, it
a
could
not.
get worse. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, how could you had a president that already mucked this up? How could you make it just? It's like that whole classic. Hey, do you think a GOP president can make Katrina look good? Trump says, "Hold my beer."
Right?
I
Oof.
mean, it's like, and that's the way it is, because I mean, it was just absolutely horrible, and I'm just going, but yeah. So I mean, but most teams, there were a couple players that would be, wouldn't go and visit Bush, but for the most part, the teams were happy to meet George W. Bush. When you have because George W. Bush was not a racist. He was not. He had white privilege, and and that is a distinction we really should discuss in depth one time. But there is a difference. White privilege is you don't understand. Racism is you understand and you don't give a,
Oh, I
So
think it's more you actively
yes,
want to keep your advantage and hold on to it. I think is the biggest
and,
difference.
right, and to hold other people down. So it's like, because I mean, all you have to do is look at right after 9/11, where yes, we did go after Iraq, but that was not because they were Muslim. Okay, it was just because it was Iraq. But George W. Bush, a couple of days after 9/11, basically says, we have to also embrace our Muslim brothers because, there's a lot of people that are going to be upset at them
Oh,
and
like
stuff
all
like
his Saudi family buddies that he flew out
yeah,
of the country before shutting down the airplanes?
yeah, well, okay, yeah, there was
Can we
that
talk
too.
about who really was on the planes? Why did we go
Yeah,
to Iraq or Afghanistan? I mean, what? All
well,
right, sorry.
the Taliban were, to be fair, the Taliban were hiding Osama bin Laden, but it could have been handled a lot better, and we wouldn't have had to dealt with what we dealt with, and still are dealing with. As far as we tried to change the government, and still
Oh,
trying to change the government. So
W
that's
was
the
bad,
difference.
but at least he's not a racist. Got it.
Yeah, so he wasn't brilliant,
See,
but
we
at
said
least he's.
something nice about someone today.
We're trying. We really are. So I mean, we need to keep the news in preference, but on the same thing, sometimes I don't know if it's just me. There's a lot of people that feel this way on Twitter and stuff like that, where it just feels like the past 2 years have been 30. And I am physically exhausted. They talk about how presidents age as they go through and they show pictures of like Obama and stuff like that. I think it's a reverse on this one. The nation is aging while Trump isn't. Where there is more gray hair in my hair and in my face, and I'm
We'd
just
never know.
why wouldn't we? Oh, my hair, yeah. No.
With the
I always
dye and the tanning booths and the. We'd
well,
never
that's
know.
true. That's not. Look, the Fanta Mentis is not. He doesn't go to a tanning booth. He gets sprayed. We is.
I don't know. It
You think?
really. Yeah, because. Well, it's been a little better. Actually, I've noticed an improvement in his pallor. It's a little less orange, but the oranges in particular, a bulbs haven't been changed too long in the booth, and then there are times where it suddenly shows up darker, and that his eyelids are still really, really white from those little cover they put
Yeah,
over your eyes. That it's like, man, you should spring for a spray tan, man. I think he might be now.
but yeah. So it's one of those situations where I've just. But yeah. So there are so many names for him. The Cheeto Bandito is one of them. I've heard, but that makes me not want to eat Cheetos, and I really love Cheetos.
Greg Proops
Um,
has the best running list. I wonder if
oh,
it's
really?
actually in a list somewhere. I listen to the Smartest Man in the World podcast, or I used to, and he every week was coming up with something else. It cracks me
The
up.
the one that I've gravitated toward because I hate the prequels. It's Fanta Menace.
Cute.
Yeah, I again not a fan of, but so that is another thing. So what else do we have? Do you have anything
That's
else?
about it.
Anything going on in your world right now?
Same stuff, different time. No, I mean nothing that's relevant to our show.
All right. I know that we had promised that we were going to do Kirk Hammond Saving Christmas. We have notes for that. It's in the system. We will get to that next year. It's just that between there was
I'm saving my notes digitally. I'm not watching that shit again.
no, I'm not. No, I've saved my notes digitally. I am not watching that again. I can't. I
All right.
can't. I can't go back there, bro. Don't make me go that back there, man.
If my kids are really bad next year, maybe I'll make them watch it.
No. At this point, from my understanding, what's even worse is having them watch the Illumination version of the How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I hear that is really horrible.
Yeah.
But there's only one Grinch Stole Christmas, and that's the 30. That's the one from the 60s because it was short and just like the book.
And Boris Karloff.
And Boris Karloff, yes, and the voice of Tony the Tiger singing.
Okay.
So, but anyway, so we will get to that next year, or this year at Christmas. We'll just pull out those notes and go, "Oh, I remember why we're not going to watch that again because I value my sanity." But yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I had recorded something that we were going to try to shoot up this week, and then I realized that my computer hates me, and it sounded like screeching harpies or on for an hour, and no one wants to listen to that. So I do apologize. I will get that fixed, and if I have to do that again, it won't happen again. Next week we'll probably come up with something to talk about. I know that people are starting to throw in their hats way too early for the presidential nomination. Look, I just had the midterms, the holidays are over, it's still winter. I don't want to know. Just can we wait until at least summer before this happens? I'm just asking. I'm like,
I can tell you haven't actually done campaign work, so.
No. I worked for a political action community, but I haven't no, I understand. I just think like the British way of doing it, where you get 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I think that would actually probably do this nation a lot of good. That's always been but again, it's really hard to do that with a two-party system and it not being a parliamentary system. So it's kind of, but we can discuss that as well as another time. But yeah, no, I was just like, they're already announcing, and I'm like, I can't right now. So we'll find an actual topic about faith and about politics that minces together. I'm thinking possibly about the poor, but we've kind of sort of touched on that. So we'll think of something. And we are going to be back next week about 5. And then the following week on the 13th, for those who come and follow us early, we will be, or follow us live, we will be on from 12 to 1, starting on the 13th of February, and that's going to be our new start time for the live services, and then we'll get it posted and everything later that evening to all the other services as well. So, with that being said, I'm Reverend Barney, and this has been Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast trying to reclaim faith in the political context. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at SethRothII, or you can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and now on iTunes. Just, search us and you'll find us.
And I'm September, also known as Night of 12. You can find me all over the place. Bless your hearts.
Bless your hearts.
Okay, I'm gonna click the end stream.